welcome. Tapping into the power of audio. Before we kick off, let's do the obligatory introductions. Jon, I will start with you.
Okay, I'm Jon Vick, and I lead global partnerships or ad partnerships at SoundCloud. We don't have a direct sales team at SoundCloud, so we leverage exclusive partnerships with the likes of Pandora in the US, AdsWiz in 14 European markets, and DAX UK in the UK.
Thank you very much. Pierre.
Hi, I'm Pierre Naggar, so I kind of run global demand and at AdsWiz, and we are kind of a full stack digital audio technology platform. So we provide kind of solutions both for kind of streaming, podcasting, obviously on-demand music platforms such as kind of SoundCloud, and also solutions for agencies and advertisers.
Thank you very much. Deepali, finally.
Hi, I'm Deepali. I'm on the agency side working at Matterkind. I'm Client Solutions Director, so we help our brands with solutions and strategy moving through the programmatic space.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So tapping into the power of audio. I personally love audio, and I think audio is a really, really valuable, powerful advertising medium. I feel like, Rachel mentioned that it's been talked about in the past day and a half, but not as much as the likes of CTV and out of home. And I feel that's doing a bit of a disservice, because I think there's a lot that could still be said for audio and done for audio. I'm fascinated, first of all, to understand, what the past 18 months, I'm assuming, has been a kind of a huge boon for audio in terms of the listening habits of people's changed massively, and there must be so much more opportunity now than there ever was before. I want to understand kind of what's changed over the past couple of years for audio. Jon, from a publisher perspective, obviously you mentioned that you monetize SoundCloud, via partnerships rather than kind of, in other ways. But how has SoundCloud adapted to changing consumer demand? Because you always think SoundCloud is a bit of an underdog, but actually you're going to tell me it's absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been that visible in Europe, to be honest, and in the US it is very different. But the audience is still very much here. We have a huge audience across Europe. But to go into sort of audio over the last 18 months, I mean, music streaming has grown massively. Just to give you an idea, the total sort of subscribers to music streaming services, about 500 million. 100 million of them was added just last year. So people have been piling into the format. In terms of audio revenue, I think it's the second fastest growth behind video. It grew about 17% year over year, which was behind video at 19%. And yeah, we've seen that because people's habits have changed. They've been at home, they've been listening to music. Us as a business, we've sort of pivoted more away from being an audio platform to a music company. We're investing in artists and providing resources, tools and services for them, and that in turn is helping the platform and the music grow, and I know other streaming services are doing similar. You mentioned right at the beginning of yesterday, TikTok, that is a new thing for the music industry, and we see a correlation there where if music blows up on TikTok, often that music hasn't been properly released, and there's an artist like Pink Pantheress is one example here, and that Pink Pantheress,
Sure.
Very good, and and that's driven a lot of people into SoundCloud because her music was exclusively there. So yeah, we're seeing a huge drive over the last 18 months.
Pink Pantheress, what a name. Everyone go look it up on SoundCloud. Sounds amazing. I certainly will be. Deepali, from the agency perspective, how, Jon was talking about numbers there in terms of how the SoundCloud platform's grown, and that probably reflects audio more generally as well in terms of how audiences are changing and growing. Are you seeing advertiser budgets grow in the same way in terms of how they're shifting to audio?
Yeah, well, like 4 to 5 years ago, we saw like a lot of skepticism around audio due to measurement and targeting. But since then, it's become a stable part of our plan. So we're definitely seeing growth in audio spend. We see great awareness from in-stream audio, where we're seeing that backed by brand uplift studies, where we're seeing good ad recall and good awareness. And then podcast is now bringing about a targeting solution as well. So like brands are loving that because you can resonate with the podcast or the audiences you want to target through categorization. measuring, and now finally interactive audio, which I'm really excited about personally, because I feel like that's first, like, brought about the measurement piece, like, for the first time.
What do we mean by interactive audio? What does that look
like? That's like smart speakers, like audio through smart speakers. So through interactive audio, basically, what you're able to do is that users can engage with with the audio ad, so you can actually measure interaction. And finally, you can maybe one day measure purchasing, which you actually can measure purchasing through purchasing a product through your smart speaker, through like an Amazon or Google. So yeah, it's a really exciting space. I think like that's definitely brought about the spend in audio.
That's really cool. Interesting to see how audio is being integrated with other channels. It's a fascinating thing. And actually one of the most popular things that everyone says what the innovation they're looking forward to most over the next sort of 10 years is e-commerce. And actually it sounds like there's a great role for e-commerce to play in the audio space as well.
Yeah, I definitely would agree. Like, I think with Alexa being linked into Amazon, like, it's so easy. Like, I want to be hit with one of these ads so that I can personally buy something off my Amazon straight away. I think it's definitely a good link.
And Pierre, from a tech perspective, you mentioned that you obviously AdsWiz are a full stack, so you get to see kind of end-to-end what's happening in the audio space, and you started out, I guess, aggregating premium publisher supply. How are you seeing audio change from a tech perspective, from technology advances, and I guess how audiences are changing, and how publishers, it feels like audio is basically just sort of segmented across a few big players. It doesn't feel there's a lot of fragmentation in the industry. Is that unfair, or are we seeing more different types of audio content coming out than we were before?
Well, I think there's a huge amount of premium content now available within audio, whether it's kind of streaming or the likes of kind of SoundCloud, but also when it comes to podcasts is big. It's very big in the US. It's getting bigger in Europe. In the US, it's like a $1 billion actually market. And actually within podcasts, you see a lot of fragmentation, which is one of the challenges we're trying to kind of solve. From a technology perspective, it's interesting. When I started at AdsWiz like 6 years ago, there was basically no programmatic infrastructure. DSPs didn't have kind of audio capabilities. There was no supply available from a programmatic perspective. If you fast forward to 2021, there is, tens of different DSPs who are now kind of buying kind of digital audio programmatically. There is a lot of supply, a lot of inventory available kind of programmatically. Connected and using kind of OpenRTB as the kind of standard, like any other channel, and if, as far as AdsWiz is concerned, I think we made a contribution in terms of kind of bringing audio to kind of the digital world, and making all the kind of solutions and tools available to be able to kind of trade between buyers and sellers. So the reality is that today, if you want to, for example, if you're a brand and you want to actually buy programmatically, you have pretty much all the kind of solutions from a targeting perspective, from a data perspective, also from a measurement point of view, to be able to actually to transact. So it's here today, and it's actually a great opportunity for brands.
And when we say programmatic, do we mean real-time bidding?
Absolutely, 100%. So you have, you can actually execute campaigns. You can do, using kind of private marketplaces, private deals, programmatic guaranteed, all the standards that you hear that are kind of available within kind of display and video and other channels are also available within audio.
And Jon, from a publisher perspective, kind of what, when it comes to monetizing your inventory, kind of how is technology evolving to help you guys be able to do that more effectively? Particularly in terms of like the fragmentation that must be challenging for you guys as well. In terms of obviously your one platform, but the types of content you have on there vary massively from Pink Pantheress to there's podcasts on there. I remember when we first launched our podcast, we put it on SoundCloud. I'm very sorry we don't anymore. But there's a lot of different types of content on there. How do you go about aggregating that and monetizing that?
Yeah, I mean, the first-party data that we have is key, and we obviously pass that through to partners such as AdsWiz and DAX, and that's what we've seen in terms of the technology benefiting us. I mean, so we partnered with AdsWiz as an example at the beginning of this year, and I've sat on a number of calls where we've sort of introduced the SoundCloud and AdsWiz sort of tech stack together to agencies in markets across Europe, and there's certain calls with somewhere like the Nordics where you'll have 20 people on a call from different offices in the Nordics, all sort of saying for the first time, right, this is exactly what we needed. This is a format that we're going to start using a lot more, and yeah, that's where it's been really, really helpful. And the other thing with DAX as an example as well, we we pass our data through to them because, yeah, we don't have the scale. There's obviously Spotify, etc., is a lot bigger than SoundCloud. But, you know, the way we work is to partner with the vendors who do invest a lot in the technology, and we've done some really interesting things. You know, the data that we pass through to DAX is used in, you know, as mentioned on the last panel, in combination with outdoor, where, you know, they can sort of, I think they ran a campaign for Samsung watches, where you can identify people who live near a park, target those people with audio, but then you can use TfL data to sort of integrate that with out-of-home advertising across the Tube network. So yeah, there's all sorts of ways that we contribute to it, even though we're a bit obviously smaller than some of the others.
Interesting. And so, Deepali, from the Deepali, from the buyer perspective, what do your clients want out of audio? Like, you know, we talked about, Pierre brought up measurement, and measurement has been challenging in the past, and there's obviously a lot of improvements, the standardization coming out in terms of audio measurement. How are your clients able to interpret that data, and how are you guys able to help them understand the context of that amongst other channels? Because I'm assuming it's normally part of an omni-channel offering, right?
So I think like the measurement of audio, like we've heard a lot about measurement today, and you have to be realistic with the measurement of audio. Like audio is used only as an awareness product, and when it's sold in like that, we see great success. You can't expect from audio performance metrics, like similar to you can't expect it from rich media. So I think like those kind of like expectations are laid out from the beginning of what we can really measure. And then, as I mentioned before, we've got brand uplift studies where we have like questionnaires that we give to our clients where they're able to raise, like measure what they see as important. So that's how we measure and show the value of audio and bringing awareness.
Interesting. And from a data and measurement perspective, Pierre, what are you able to do now that you weren't able to do 2 years ago, just for example?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, from, again, related to kind of data and measurement and attribution, I think there's been a lot of work been done in the last couple of years. Yes, you know, obviously you can measure things like kind of brand uplift, but we've actually partnered with, you know, different companies out there who are able to measure, who can actually deliver footfall studies, looking at what is the impact of people who listen to an audio ad and then see what is the results and the impact in terms of people actually going to a store. The other thing is that we've done a lot of work in terms of driving, looking at how we can actually measure kind of online conversions. Within a podcasting environment, within a streaming environment, we have our own technology where we can actually measure that and can actually deliver insights and results back to the brands so that they can actually optimize the campaign. So certainly, you know, some advertisers will look at kind of using audio as a kind of reach and frequency, channel. But we see more and more advertisers, particularly kind of, you know, digital advertisers, who are also starting to look at audio to kind of drive, to drive purchase, to drive consideration, so to drive actually more kind of hard metrics.
Interesting. And so, Jon, from a publisher perspective, how are you guys packaging up your inventory to allow marketers to buy it and allow them to actually, you know, have robust targeting opportunities?
Yeah, I think going back to what I said earlier, you know, with the likes of AdsWiz, we have the first-party data. You know, everyone is logged in, and we push that data through to the partners so that they can get more bespoke with the targeting that they can offer. So with AdsWiz and with DAX, you know, our data is contributing to when an advertiser wants to work with either of those, for example, to target anything from, you know, travel to automotive. Our data is contributed towards that. So yeah, there's also, and we do a lot of things ourselves as well that we also pass through, but prior to campaigns being booked. So we do a lot of on-platform questionnaires, research. You know, our audience research team is key, obviously, to maintain not just the sort of ads growth, but you know, MAUs, and making sure that we're doing all the right things there. So we have, for each market across Europe, we have audience research that AdsWiz will use with the partners there as well. So yeah, we get very detailed on exactly who's using the platform and share that across the board. And with Pandora in the US, that's our biggest partnership by a long way, and that works in the same way.
And is brand suitability a challenge or a concern for buyers in audio? How do you mitigate against that, Deepali?
Well, I think, with brand suitabilities, we do targeting at the moment. So, with audio, there was on the last year, I think there was the consent management platform where like users could consent into getting their targeting. But it's been like, the targeting's been a bit limited on my side anyway. I feel the targeting solutions have been a bit limited. Podcast.
Take note, Pierre. Limited targeting solutions.
Yeah, maybe we can
Well,
talk
well,
later.
that's
Yeah. But I think through podcasts, we're seeing we're able to bring that back to brand suitability, target people through categorization. And yeah, I'm hoping to see more in that space, or maybe learn more about that space too.
And do brands use block lists? How are they negatively targeting, if you like? Or doesn't it work that way? I've never bought audio, so
it's treated very much in the same way as other formats as well. If you look at everything from GDPR to TCF, all these things have to be implemented by us. ATT, it's all has to be done at a publisher level. We have to follow all those rules as well. And when you look at again like DAX and I think Bauer, for example, they also follow the cap codes and they apply that to audio as well. So there's all the same sort of everything that applies to other formats has to be done across.
Yeah, I would say on the podcasting side, because it's so fragmented, you're talking about there are today about 2 million shows and 48 million episodes, and it's actually growing 20% year over year. So when it comes to actually to buy and to plan a campaign, it can be quite daunting for kind of agencies. And to your point about brand safety and brand suitability, some brands have concerns around that. So for example, what we've done at AdsWiz is over the last couple of years, we've developed actually a transcription solution where we transcribe from thousands of different podcast shows from speech to text. Then we we classify all the podcast shows and podcast episodes into different topics and themes. So it's actually easier to buy, especially if you want to buy across thousands of shows. And then on top of that, we partner with Comscore, who apply kind of brand safety and brand suitability. So you can effectively target away some of the shows you don't want to be kind of associated with. So it kind of solves for a couple of challenges. One is about targeting, especially if you have such kind of fragmentation. It also solves for the fact that you're not relying on cookies or mobile IDs because it's contextual. And then it solves for the challenge around kind of brand safety and brand suitability.
Yeah, just echoing what Pierre and Jon said, that's the beauty of audio for agencies, because we don't really have to think about the brand safety element of it as much, because you're partnering with providers like Spotify or SoundCloud or even DAX. You don't have to really think about whether you're in a brand safe environment, and with podcasts, the solution is through categorization.
It's interesting though, you say that you haven't got to think about it because they are trusted platforms, but actually if you look at YouTube is the opposite. It is not trusted at all. So actually the audio space has done a good job of securing itself and putting itself forward as a place that is brand safe and consumer safe as well. And I want to understand as well from the creative aspect of it too, how do brands understand how they can achieve sort of creative integrity and creative sincerity when it comes to audio advertising? You hear a lot of podcasts, a lot of them are kind of owned and operated, so you've got the actual podcast host doing the ads themselves, but you also kind of hear other ones as well. How are brands managing how they understand what kind of options they have when it comes to creative? Deepali?
Well, we can partner with there's options like 1 million ads where you can have a bit more dynamic targeting with audio. That's really cool. And now again, like I mentioned, with interactive audio as well, that's another creative option with audio as well, in the sense that you can build a decision tree, taking the user to walk through the journey that you want to take them through. So those are the creative options I see on my side, which are really useful within audio. And I'm sure that there's going to be more tailoring options as audio space evolves.
Yeah, you've got to say it now, Instramatic and 1 million ads. All these companies are doing a really good service to audio because they're obviously launching new businesses and pushing them into the agencies. And I know, AdsWiz is a company partners with them. And so yeah, there's lots of exciting things happening. The Audio Mob as well, one I've been sort of reading. Haven't met them before, but something happened this week where randomly the rapper Nas has sort of really suggested that artists put their music into audio ads. So that could be a sort of new way an artist gets discovered even.
Yeah, there are great options when it comes to audio in terms of creative format. So we've gone from just kind of, taking the traditional 30-second radio ad to now more formats that really take advantage of, the kind of digital environment, take advantage of all the targeting options. So from dynamic to creative to voice interaction. I mean, we for example, we've developed 4 years ago a format called Shake Me. And the reason why we came up with Shake Me was we see 60% of the people actually access audio via their mobile, and most of the times they don't look at their screen. So how do we try to get a call to action? And so we came up with this format where, right in the middle of the audio ad, you're asked to kind of shake your phone to kind of download an app or open a website or place a call.
Great idea.
And, we've got, we've seen anything between 1 to kind of 4% interaction rate on the back of this, which is massive compared to kind of, display advertising, for example. But when it comes to brands, I think that it's a huge opportunity for them. I was actually reading, there's a piece of research done by Ipsos called The Power of You, where clearly, when it comes to kind of brand recall and brand recognition, actually audio assets index higher than visual assets. So it's a huge opportunity for them to actually, build their kind of what we call sonic identity. And I think some of the brands out there who've done that have actually, really, they're seeing kind of great results. So there's a huge opportunity for brands to actually build on their kind of audio identity moving forward. And at the same time, there's a lot of education needed when it comes to actually building kind of creatives. For example, when it comes to podcasts, if you're going to try to, a radio style ad is not going to work because of the volume of the ad, because of the tone. So you really need to kind of adapt that. And that's why you're seeing things like host reads or announcer reads, which are really part of the content. And it's kind of taking into consideration the fact that, people who listen to podcasts have, they actively listen to the content. And they don't want necessarily kind of their experience being kind of interrupted by an ad that doesn't really kind of fit in.
Digital audio and programmatic audio is a fairly nascent channel still, right? It's only a few years old, really, in terms of how it's really got going. Do you think that it will experience the same growing pains that display experience and that we've seen, the year of the mobile every year for the past 15 years? Do you expect the same thing to happen to audio? It feels like a very playful channel. There's a lot of experimentation, innovation going on. But do you think that we'll encounter struggles?
I personally feel the foundations are down pretty much, and that you can buy it through all the major DSPs, through omnichannel DSPs. And I think the demand is there, the growth is there. For music streaming, the music is growing in a huge way at the moment, the music industry, and that's filtering through to music platforms. And the demand, I think there was a study recently by DAX UK who did an agency survey, which we talked about, and I think it was nearly 3/4 of the buyers that were surveyed said that they're confident that sort of audio is a format that people listen to where they're very engaged, and it always sort of has a positive emotional response. And then, and you mentioned obviously activities. Over 3/4 of people are confident that it's a perfect format to reach people whilst they're being active. And I think so. The demand is absolutely there. I don't really see an issue. I think it's a pretty good run at the moment, really, and yeah. Everyone's doing good work to just keep that going.
Pierre, would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel like sometimes audio is maybe not seen as, it's not as sexy as maybe as kind of, connected TV or digital at home or anything to do with kind of, again, the visual aspect.
It doesn't get the same love, does it?
Yeah, and but the reality is that on the consumer side, and this is actually even pre-pandemic, we've seen kind of growth over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's across all demographics. I mean, if you look at, listenership and who actually, whether it's kind of streaming or podcasting, it's across all demographic, and particularly kind of young demographics, and they listen kind of throughout the day, across multiple, devices, from desktop to kind of mobile to kind of smart speakers, and it's, you can only hear to one audio ad at a time. It's kind of a really immersive experience. So I feel like there is there is a huge opportunity. I think it's down really to kind of education and spending more time with brands, with agencies, just to explain what the opportunity is. Yes, there is additional work that we need to do on the measurement and attribution side. You know, we need to solve for the fragmentation of podcasting. But by and large, the infrastructure is here. So,
do you think there's money being left on the table? Like, is there more advertiser spend that should be coming into this channel that isn't at the moment?
I mean, there's a huge gap between consumption and basically, you know, how much money is being spent on audio. I mean, look, I think last year, I think it was just over £100 million spent in audio out of a digital advertising market, which is what, 16.5 billion? So.
Tiny percentage.
Yeah.
Deepali, are you seeing the types of clients that are investing in audio evolve? Are they changing? Are you seeing new clients that you would never have thought would be audio advertisers before?
Well, I think like audio has become a staple part of advertising. So like on my side, like if I'm looking for awareness, if an advertiser's coming to me telling me they're looking for reach, frequency, awareness, then audio is somewhere that we turn our advertisers towards, because it's one of those platforms where I feel like users have trust in the platform, because traditional radio has been around for years. And like I feel like digital audio is just a migration of traditional radio, because that's where our users are now plugged in. They're plugged in through apps like SoundCloud and Spotify, and they're plugged into podcasts. Like I myself turn to podcasts so much for knowledge, right? So when I hear an ad on podcasts, I'm immediately drawn to that brand and it resonates with me. So it's like, again, achieving awareness and consideration. So I feel like in terms of like brands using audio, I don't think like there's a certain type of brand that needs to use audio. I feel like it's applicable to all brands, because it's a great place to cut through the noise.
Interesting. And we're running out of time, but I do want, it feels like audio actually is one of the most engaging channels, actually. You talk a lot about rewarded video in gaming, but often people watch that video because they're physically being forced to get an extra coin. But actually for audio, people are listening to it because they kind of want to, or because they haven't got the ability to fast forward, but it feels like it's a very engaged channel. And there's so much exciting stuff coming up that I think is really interesting. My last question to you all is what you are most excited about in the audio space in the next sort of 3 to 5 years, what you think is coming up is going to really, really change the landscape. Jon, I'll start with you.
I think the work that's happening with the creative is really exciting. For us as a business, obviously partnering with AdsWiz, Pierre mentioned the Shake Me format. That's going to be available all across Europe for the first time in Q1, and we already know there's good demand for that there. So that I'm excited about. But outside of that, from a SoundCloud perspective, I'm excited about the growth of the music industry again, because we've made a lot of changes to just adapt to that and be a bigger part of that, which I'm confident we will be, and that will increase our supply, because that's the main thing we need to do, because we do lack supply. We need more audio.
More audio. Is it there's not enough of it already? How many podcasts do you say are out there, Pierre?
There's close to 2 million shows.
Wow, that is insane. What do you think is the thing you're most excited about in the audio space?
Well, I think it's, at a macro level, I think that, again, I talked about that kind of big gap between consumption and, and I think it's going to reduce over time, because ultimately brands need to be where consumers are. I think that, we're going to see more kind of premium content being produced. Obviously, there's a challenge around monetization. I mean, if you take podcasts, there's less than 5% of actually podcast shows that are being monetized. That's why we're actually building tools to help for that kind of fragmentation. I think there's a lot. You talked about gaming. Audio is coming because, again, it's not as it doesn't interrupt the gamer's experience. I think we're going to see obviously kind of social audio coming up. So there's a lot. So it's super exciting.
That is a lot. Yeah, lots to be excited about. Deepali, same question to you.
I feel like, audio is a bit ahead of the curve at the moment, I feel, with the cookieless world upcoming next year. And I feel like audio is a good channel, which is already quite cookieless. So I feel like with that further investment, I think audio's got a real space there to grow and evolve even further. And what I'm really excited to see is more targeting options, as we discussed. And definitely the measurement piece being brought about, where we can track purchases maybe through audio, making it a bit more of a robust programmatic solution.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We are out of time. I think it's a very interesting conversation. Everyone go down and download Pink Pantheress. Jon, Pierre, Deepali, thank you very much.
SoundCloud.
Give them a round of
Thank you.
on SoundCloud.